hopefully go away eventually.
Everything you just worked so hard to get.
Welcome to Morning Medley number 296. My monitor hasn't died, but my internet is currently out. I'm going through a slight internet outage, so I won't be able to see the comments for a little bit. But I hope everybody had a good weekend. Welcome to Monday. I feel like I haven't played piano in a pretty long time. Which is why I'm starting with that newer piece, trying to make sure I don't forget it. write stuff now. Good morning, Lindsay. Good morning, Dar. Good morning, Dar and Lindsay. Good morning, Liam. What is a long time for you to not play piano, says Dar? A week? A week feels significant for me, Dar. As somebody who typically works on music every day, even the days where I say I don't work on music, I'm typically working on music. I'm just working on different music. So I'd say a week without touching the piano is a long time for me. Even right now, right, I say I haven't played piano in a week. It hasn't really been a week because some of you were in, the stream 2 days ago where I was producing and I was technically playing piano. It's just, I didn't feel like I was truly playing it because there wasn't weighted keys and I wasn't playing prepared pieces. But as far as like not touching a keyboard, not even working on music, I can't remember the last time I've gone a week without working on music at all. Also, I want to take a brief moment to apologize for the noise. So a thing that's happening in my cul-de-sac, where I live on the west side. Sorry, I live on the east side of my cul-de-sac. My cul-de-sac and my street in general, it runs north-south, so it's split into east-west sides. The east side, the buildings are a little dingier and worn down and less maintained and worse upkept. And the buildings on the west side used to be the same way, but in the time that I've been living here, I've looked at these two gentlemen, I'll call them. Two very wealthy gentlemen have like one by one bought all the buildings on the west side of the cul-de-sac and removed the people that were inside of them and spruced them up a bit and added like really nice pretty trees and plants to the outside, and the stoops are really nice and painted now. And they have those little flower pots on the outside of the windows which don't seem to be being used for anything, but anyways, it's the nicer side of the cul-de-sac, or the street in general. It's the nicer side of it, the west side. And right now they're installing new trees, and it's very noisy. It's very noisy. Anyway, so if you hear any like construction type sounds in the background, that's what's going on over there. I guess I don't care about the noise that much. It is nerve-wracking a little bit to see that happen to your area. I don't know. Anyways, I'm gonna bum myself out. Dar says we're only 4 here. Indeed, only 4. Well, I guess 5 now. Hello, Liana. The active sound of gentrification. Yeah, right? Not a fan, but, they haven't bought my building yet, so I'm still here. If they do buy my building, they're definitely not going to allow me to remain in it, so I guess I'm trying to enjoy my time in this building/room while it lasts, I guess. In general, I'm not going to get like too political or city planning in here, but in 2020, that happened a lot. In 2020, as people were kind of vacating their homes or being removed from their homes, I would say that in LA, I've seen more construction, gentrification, and revitalizing and I'm trying to think of less upsetting words to use for what's happening. But anyways, I've seen more of it happening in the last year than I have in my entire 5 prior years living in Los Angeles. It's really weird. I feel like a lot of people that left the city during the 2020 time, and they were like, oh, it's too expensive in LA, I'll come back when, there's stuff happening out here and there's work. Those people, whenever they come back, they're coming back to a very different city. Stuff happens fast, man. Colonization. I got caught up on the production stream, says Liana. I'm reading through Booba's Leaves. It's creating a cool atmosphere for me. Anyways, I got caught on the production streams last night, and I woke up thinking, it feels like I'm sinking, feels like I'm drinking. Ooh, I should change the lyrics to that. Sinking. I should say drowning is just drinking. It's just drinking yourself to death. But I'm glad that some bit of my lyricism did permeate your slumber, Liana. You know, something I thought about recently, Liana? I don't know how many of you guys know. How many of you guys know the musician slash songwriter Olu Bliss? Pretty good New York based. Actually, I think he left New York last year. I think a lot of people left New York last year. People were kind of running from the big cities last year. But anyways, New York based, very talented Nigerian R&B artist. He writes a lot of music, like me. And we were talking about themes in music. This was a while ago, but I thought about it recently. We were talking about themes in music, and how every songwriter kind of has a theme, and it can be in your music. Maybe there's a certain way that you hit chords because they're the chords you like, or it's because of the way your hands feel comfortable. Maybe there's a certain tone that you typically go for when you're playing guitar because it's just something you like, or it's something that you feel is emulative or derivative of something that inspired you. I don't know. Everybody kind of has a voice in music. And that voice is not limited only to sound. It actually does bleed into lyricism as well. And no matter whether you're the most verbose, and eloquent person in the world, there are going to be repetitive slash frequent themes that show up in just the words you're saying in your music. And I've spent a lot of my short time in lyricism trying to run away from those things, Like if I have a song where I talk about drowning, I try not to mention drowning in another song. If I have a song where I talk about flying, I get upset when I accidentally or by happenstance mention flying in another song. I'm like, there's so many more things to mention. Why am I only talking about flying and drowning? And after having that conversation with Olu, I actually thought about it. I thought about songwriters. I thought about Bruno Mars. I thought about The Weeknd. And then I even thought about some songwriters that aren't huge pop stars. I thought about Eddie. I thought about Mia. I thought about Clairo even. And I'm like, okay, these people also have some very, very repetitive, like reoccurring themes and choices in their lyricism. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're mentally limited or that they can't come up with better words. It's just these are the themes that exist inside them. And I'll tell you guys firsthand, a lot of the time when you're writing music, you don't think about those themes. They just kind of come out. They just kind of happen. And I think drowning and flying are two of like my biggest themes in music. And I'm not like giving up as far as creativity, but I'm saying in the future I'm going to allow myself to lean into that a little bit more. It's interesting. Even in the songs that I make in the stream, there's already 2 songs about flying, or there's 2 songs that mention flying. There's 3 songs, sorry, that mention flying. And there's 2 songs that mention drowning. The song Atlantis is about drowning, that was on Ego Death. I have a song that mentions not being able to swim. I have a song that mentions driving a car off of a bridge, which, I don't mention in the song, but the bridge that I'm talking about in Los Angeles, there's water on it. At the bottom of that is a song about drowning. Anyways, good morning, Crow. Yeah, what the heck? Here. The sun's in your eyes. How about there? That works for me. Okay. Anyways, that'll be my greetings for everybody. Hi, Isadora. That's my greetings for everybody. I guess I'll get this started on the medley actually now, the actual medley part. But yeah, I do hope everybody had a good weekend, and I hope everybody's safe. For those of you that were not in the production stream, my stomach is feeling better. I don't feel like dying anymore, which is kind of cool. I still feel a little queasy every morning and late night, but I feel like that's probably going to go eventually. Can't last too long, right? But yeah, I'm better. I'm better. That's interesting, Liam. You know, I can actually remember thinking that too, or rather coming to that realization that, or at least a lot of the music that, maybe not that I listened to, but a lot of the music that I really liked and connected with had darker lyrics. I don't have any songs about jumping in front of a train. I don't know why. I spend so much time in and around trains. Why am I always around it? Gibson. How you been? Oh, sorry, I got sidetracked. Anywho, what time is it? There's 10 minutes left. I'll call that the medley. Started goofing around towards the end. Oh crap! That's not even a chord. Oh, okay. I was missing 78 to downtown. I'm glad you got to hear it, Easy Door. I only played it because you were here. If I didn't see your name, I wouldn't have played it. If I'm being completely honest. That's really cool. That's Spain got snow though. I'm probably going to see the snow tomorrow. I think either tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. I'm gonna drive up to the mountains and not be online for a second. Oh my god. Yo, this song is actually really hard to play. Okay, so every now and then I'll make a song. I'll make a song that requires two hands right for chords. A lot of my songs require two hands for chords because a lot of my songs are voice led. I've talked briefly in previous streams about what voice leading actually is, what it means, and why it's important. But voice leading, like for example, on the song Key Lime. What I'm doing is I'm combining three different elements into my two hands. Now, first element is bass line. So my left hand is pretty much just delegated to bass. Or so it would seem if I was just playing the left hand by itself like I just was. But when I add my right hand, a couple more elements are added. The first element that's added is chords, a chord progression. So my right hand is doing this. It's a chord progression. And then I'm adding a third element still on the same hand, and it's just my pinky. My pinky and my ring finger do pretty much all of the melodic work of Key Lime. So I have my bass line with my left hand, and then I have my chords with my right hand, and then I have my melody also in just my pinky and ring finger with my right hand. is a habit. Goodbye, Ava. Thanks so much for being here. Now, this is a habit that comes mostly from this is a habit that comes mostly from playing a solo piano. I have also played in a lot of bands, and trust me, I don't have to do this much work when I play in bands because there's an actual bass player, and there's like rhythm guitar section, and there's somebody singing, so I'm not having to carry the toll of all three things. Usually, in a band, I'm having to choose one or the other, whether I'm playing chords to back up the melody, whether the melody is being performed by a guitar or a vocalist, or I'm doing the leads, in which case the chords are being, carried by the guitar or whatever. So, and of course the bass line, typically in an ensemble, you're never playing the bass line on keyboards because there's usually a bass player there, whether they're playing bass guitar or a bass keyboard themselves. They're usually taking that job from you, which is nice. But again, as a solo piano player, I do have to kind of, put bass chords and and melodies all together with just my two hands. And it's both dynamic, but also in its own way limiting, because you can only do so much. So a lot of times when I'm trying to contextualize something for FL Studio, right? Like I'm recording a chord progression that I came up with in the stream. Sometimes it can be kind of hard because I don't want to play, the bass and the chord progression and the melody all at the same time. What I want to do is take the bass line and remove it from keyline so that I can record an actual separate bass line with a bass sound, be it a bass guitar or a deeper synth, and I will have more control over it if it's separated. I'll be able to turn it up and down, the bass, and mix it appropriately. And so then I will just play keyline without the bass line going. And it will allow me to have that bass somewhere else, to delegate it to a different instrument. Same thing would be happening with the lead. Maybe I don't want to play the lead. Maybe I want to sing the lead. Like if you've heard keyline, you know that the leads are sang with my voice. So instead, I even remove the melody. So all I'm playing is... I'm recording in just the chords, and I'm allowing, the different jobs to be delegated to other things. The reason I'm saying all this is because some of my more complex voice-led chord progressions, like that of Just Believing, when it's time to add the lead to that, I don't have enough fingers left. I don't have enough fingers because my left hand is busy taking care of the bass line, and my right hand is busy taking care of the articulation of the chords. So when it comes time to actually add the melody, what I have to do is figure out what chords I'm even playing. So I've been able to, a few minutes ago, I kind of analyzed it and found this chord. Wait, sorry. Sorry. So now I can play that with just one hand. What would normally take two hands, I can simplify to make it playable with one hand. And now it actually opens me up a whole hand so that I can play the lead. And for those of you that have been in the Friday streams and have heard that song, Just Believing, you know that it's my voice singing it. So now I can do that with my right hand. Still learning, but it's actually very hard. It's actually quite challenging. Shouldn't be this hard. Shouldn't be this hard, but it is. It's that part. This song is a nightmare. Are the Friday streams nighttime now? The past couple I think have been, and not because I wanted them to be. It's because I was still not 100% over my stomach virus, and I was getting really like the mornings were really hard for me. Like the mornings were like me in the fetal position for the most part. So I didn't do it in the morning. I did it in the evening. But no, they don't have to be. They don't have to be evening streams. The Friday ones. They can be morning streams. I'm gonna remind everybody right now to like the video if you're here. Thank you, I appreciate it. But they don't have to be. Maybe I'll do a vote on it. You know, this is the final week, guys. This is the final week of season 2. So maybe that's the thing that we vote on. And maybe for season 3, the production streams are in the evening instead of in the morning. Who knows? Who knows? Do, 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 do. Oh! No, that won't work. That part's so hard. It's just that last part that's like, I think the problem is the syncopation between the chords and the vocal melody is so weird. They're not always hitting at the same time. Like for key lime, it's like every hit is right on with the chords, and for this one, it's this kind of like weird stabby. That part. That part is so hard. Come on, Ami. So close. I'm so close, guys. I hope I'm not bothering anybody. I have to get this, or else it's gonna bother me. You can't mess up at the same part every time. Wow. That's hard. So close. move on now. I just had to get it without messing up. That's all. Hey, what's up, Ryan? My morning's well. How's yours? Is it good? Is it good? Has anything dope happened yet? If not, no worries. No worries. Nothing super dope has happened for me either. Mm-hmm. Ew. Omster sounds gross. Omster sounds like something that like Nicki Minaj would do. Ooh, that's cool. Ooh. And there's a thing in music, and Divio once said this. A great man once said, "Not every chord has to be a jazz chord." And I've talked about what's the R word? The restraint. I've talked about restraint a lot in music. It's like I think it's might be one of the words that I use the most in like production and songwriting and composing. Restraint's really important because like once you learn a new thing, whether that new thing is like how to arrange flutes, it's really hard to not put flutes in every single song you have. Like after you learn how to make a drum and bass song, it's hard to not make every song drum and bass. Once you learn how to mix reverb, it's really hard to not just make every song you have an ambient reverbed out song. Restraint is tough, and I think when doing chords, there are some chords like I like playing chords that have four notes in them. It's my brain at this point is kind of, I won't say it's hardwired, but it's grown so accustomed to making chords that have four notes in them. So much so that a lot of my songs, like if you think about songs like Winter Heart, all those chords are four note chords. Like I'm never only hitting three notes, I'm never hitting two notes, and I'm never really hitting five note chords either. It's just a bunch of four note chords, and I feel like when you're playing piano, four note chords for me feel great with one hand. It's like you have this perfect spacing between your pinky, your middle finger, your index finger, and your thumb. And it's a rich sound, as opposed to the three note chord that isn't as lush and full and wide and thick. And so I kind of camp on four note chords a lot. And when talking to Divya one time, he was just like, they don't always have to be that way. In fact, those chords have a lot more impact if you don't use a bunch of four note chords and then you, at some point, mix one in. It is nice. And I thought about that because what I had been doing was playing a bunch of four note chords, then mixing in a five note chord. like having like 1, 2, 3, and then 4. See how it's kind of more lush because you're adding that fifth note in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When making chord progressions, sometimes I will try to force having 4-note chords, and sometimes guys, like, you don't need Divio is dopamine. Sometimes you don't need 4 notes. Sometimes 4 notes actually makes the sound worse. If you think about there's crap. The second half of picture this. That goes. It goes. Now that chord progression is a pretty big mix of a bunch of 4-note chords with a moving bass line under it, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, with a bass line. So that's my fifth note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What's basically happening is I'm always playing 4-note chords with my right hand, and I'm playing a bass note with my left hand, which adds up to 5 notes. 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. But then the second time I go through it, it goes. And this chord right here, I kept trying to add a fifth note to this chord. I'm going to change to a piano sound so you can hear a little bit better. But this chord right here, I kept trying to add a fourth note to it. I kept trying to go up here. And while that does sound good actually while I'm playing it right now, it wasn't working with the chord progression that I was playing. Something about it sounded maybe just a little too colorful, like a colorful and a different palette than I was trying to use. So I ended up having to remove one of those notes and just get that. Sometimes removing notes from a really complex or pretty arrangement is what makes it better. It's weird. It's weird, and as somebody with not maybe the most in-depth background in like theoretical music stuff and education, I'm sure I'm like not using the right terms for a lot of this stuff, but anyways, but I'm sure I'm not using a lot of the right terms for a lot of this stuff, but there's several analogies that work perfectly for this. But when you're adding notes, what you're doing is you're painting yourself in a corner a little bit, and if that's a corner that you want to find, that's great. And I encourage you to find that corner, because sometimes finding a corner is where you're going to get that exact note. Like sometimes when I'm trying to end something, I can hear in my head what the chord is. When I'm building this chord, I know exactly where I want to end. I know what that chord sounds like. But the less notes you play, the further from that corner you get, obviously. Like if I just play this note, oh, this is great actually. If I just play this note, I can play a bunch of notes on top of that note. It kind of fits. It's just a bass line. Everything could potentially fit with that one note. But if I add more notes to it, it gets more and more limiting of what I can put on top of it. I don't know how many of you guys were in the Patwalk talk that I did, but I kind of got into this a little bit. I didn't want to like run up the time. But there is this sense that when somebody gives you a melody, you can put so many different chords underneath that melody, like it's really wide open. Like the melody from Into the Small, I can put so many chords under that. Or I can go, or I can go, or I can go, or I can go. So many different chords can go underneath that simple melody, right? But if we start adding harmonies to that melody and other instruments around that melody, it becomes more limiting in what I can add on it, because it gains more of an identity. It becomes less malleable, so to speak. And so sometimes you will put so many chords or so many notes in a chord or so many things in a song or so many harmonies on top of a melody that you're painting it into a corner. It becomes a lot more rigid, which can be good, but when you're making it more rigid, it limits how many things you can actually add to it, how much you can put on top of it. There's like kind of ambiguous chords that I'm slowly getting to now. Like a lot of my songs, especially from the Friday stream, rely on energy for they rely on energy for the mood. They rely on rhythm. They rely on speed. They rely on the vibe that's created around the chords. Because if I just play the chords by themselves, that's the chord progression from Just Believing. Just Believing is a song that I would say, having worked on it, is a very it's an uppity, cheery, boppy, joyful tune. But if you just take the context of the rhythm out of it, and I'm just playing the chords on piano, this could very, very easily be a very sad song. It has kind of this ambiguous nature to the chords. Some of the chords are a little bit happy, and some of them are very clearly sad, and it creates more ambiguity. Now, when I add, the glockenspiels and I add the fun vocals and I add your guys', plunderphonic voices in there, it creates this cheerful vibe for the song. And it's painting it into a corner. It's painting it into a more cheerful corner. But just these chords all by themselves could go either way. This could be a really sad song, or it could be what I ended up making it, which was more so, like more of a cheery track, And so this all relates back to the conversation that I was having with Divya, where he just says, taking things away, take some notes away. Don't make all of the things so complicated, like these 9-note chords. Sometimes taking things away and allowing a little bit of ambiguity can go a long way. And in particular, for Just Believing, taking away some of the extra stuff I could have added on top of it allowed me the freedom to make it a more happy song, as opposed to what the song actually sounds like, which is quite dour when I'm just playing the chords. Anytime Hoverboard or Ferris will come on, I can't help but sing along, says Jaime, talking about Divya songs. Yes, 2 very, very good Divya songs. For not knowing terms, I feel like you do practically know a lot of theoretical stuff. Thank you, Liana. I do appreciate that. It's one of those things, right, where it's like, to a layman, I seem to know very much, but then if I talk to somebody who actually knows proper theoretical music stuff, I would never even imply that I know what I'm talking about, because boy will they eat me alive. They'll eat me, guys. They'll eat me alive, y'all. Anywho, again, a reminder to like the stream if you're in here. I do appreciate it. I feel like I never say that anymore. But like when I look at the stream, I can see the stupid numbers in the top. It bothers me when they don't match. Dar says, boohoo, you're not formally trained. Your knowledge isn't worse. It's just different. Yeah, this is true. I wasn't saying that my knowledge is worse. I feel you. I agree with you. We're both saying the same thing, basically. I also have theoretic knowledge. It's just not theoretic knowledge that translates very well to the, I want to say Earth standard, but that's just not true, is it? I will say the Western standard of what music theory is and what music knowledge is, right? I think music, sometimes, guys, this is kind of beside the point. Sometimes I just look at the piano and it doesn't mean anything. I just see like a bunch of buttons and I'm not inspired at all. And that was me this morning. Anywho, but moving on from that kind of pointless bit of information, I think that knowing how to make music is fun and great. That's cool. But I think being able to translate and share those things with other people is also very fun and important. And I think that a lot of people go to school to learn music theory for personal understanding, and also, especially if you're learning to read and write, you're learning a language so that you can communicate with other musicians. This much is true. And as somebody who is a musician, who mostly talks to and is friends with other musicians, like I would say that everybody in like my true close circle of friends is a musician to some degree. There's a few very specific exceptions, like somebody like Adrillix, who did the art for Lush Dream and Signals and Daydream. Adrillix obviously does not make music, but Adrillix is one of my super 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 close ones. So it's not for everybody, but I would say 90% of the people in like my bosom circle are musicians. And I would say that only about half of those people are truly formally trained. But the point is, you go get this education, it helps you communicate to some of your other musician buddies. And I think that communicating with other musicians is very important and it's very fun, and I do like doing it. But what is almost arguably more fun is talking to people that don't know about music theory, people that don't have a formal training in music, because they give this kind of interesting, fresh perspective on things. Like when I talk to somebody who is a musician, right, about song length, they will talk to me about things I already know, like a song, you should get to the lyrics this fast, you should get to the point this fast, you should get to the hook by minute blank. This is pop structure. Like, we don't want songs that are 4 minutes or longer. This is how this goes. This is how this goes. Stuff I already know as a creator of music. But sometimes listening to people that do not have any theoretical knowledge of music can enrich your own approach to music, if that makes sense. I could talk for like hours about mastering and volume of music, right? Because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but music is very loud now, and it didn't used to be, you know? It used to be pretty quiet by comparison, right? It was loud enough, people could hear it, but right now, if you play a Maddie track and then you play a Stevie Wonder track, you're probably going to have to turn up whatever device you're listening to music on, because the Stevie Wonder track is going to sound half as loud as the Maddie song, and that's just because music has gotten gradually louder. Now, I haven't necessarily chased that. A lot of my music still remains to be kind of quiet. I don't really want it to be super loud necessarily. Like, hopefully you have a volume knob and you can turn the song up, but I don't really want loud music. And I think that I used to feel really bad about that. I used to feel really bad about having quiet masters, you know, because the loudness war was a thing. It was actually called that, by the way, the loudness war. And I felt inferior because my music was not as good, or not as dynamic, or not as emotive or expressive or interesting. It just wasn't as loud. It wasn't as loud as somebody else's, and I was like, dang, I don't sound very professional because my music's too quiet. And I talked to people about it, you know. I talked to people who aren't musicians about it. And a lot of the people said either one, Omni, I've never noticed that your music was quieter than other songs. Just, you know, that never occurred to me. And the other people that did notice, they were like, yeah, it's a little bit quieter, but I just turn my stereo up, or I turn the stereo of my car up, or I turn up the volume of my phone, or my laptop, or my iPod, or whatever. People were just like, yeah, I noticed the volume difference, but it isn't indicative of professionalism to me. It's just volume, which, you know, is a parameter that I have control of as a listener. And that was really interesting to me because it was something that I had literally lost sleep about. Like, not exaggerating. I had lost sleep about that. I had, like, given myself headaches trying to make my music louder. And then I learned that people that weren't necessarily musicians didn't really care or even notice that that was a metric of professionalism within the music industry. It's really interesting. So I'll say I do have some knowledge of music theoretically, but I actually get just as much fulfillment and enrichment talking about music to people who don't have music knowledge, you know, who are just lovers of or consumers of music. Sometimes I'll learn some really cool things. Sometimes I learn some not so cool things. Sometimes I don't learn anything. But just as much as I would have if I talked to somebody that knows a lot about music. Sorry, I fell behind a little bit in the chat, so I'm gonna catch up. Dar says, if your knowledge is only ever useful to select few people, is it really even knowledge, or is it just privileged people tell themselves? You are getting a little bit off, Dar, into the theory of knowledge, but that's a pretty good point. I mean, I think that knowledge and art, I mean, this is a much longer and maybe more divisive conversation, but I think that knowledge and art and all that stuff should be shared to some degree. Like, what good is a song if only you can hear it? What good is information if only you and a few other people have it? Like, anyways. Yeah, you're right though, Dar. I definitely agree, says Brian. I think the biggest draw I immediately took away from your last stream was your ability to break it down without intense theory. Yeah, that's nice. It's nice. I never want to alienate people. I never want to alienate people. And the funny thing, Brian, is sometimes I will alienate like actual like trained, accredited musicians that have like gotten a degree from something, and they're just like, I don't understand what you're talking about. But somebody who has never touched a DAW in their entire life and just listens to the same four records over and over will understand what I'm saying. And so, I would rather that. I would rather that. I haven't studied theory in years, so I have the core understandings and verbiage, but for the most part, says Brian, the growth comes from feeling, communication in a jam room and listening. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. You think think Stevie Wonder had a nice formal training and a musical degree when he was writing slang? I mean, I feel you. I feel you, darn. Like how when Liana says, like how when Rem suggested 150 BPM and you were like, ew. And you're like, oh heck, yeah, exactly. Like sometimes in the production stream, Liana was there. Sometimes in the production stream, I'll allow people to choose something, or I'll allow people to name something, or I will allow people to like make a creative choice. Not one that's huge, that's going to be difficult for them to make through text, but I'll let them make a creative choice. Like, this is how fast the song should be. This is what you should start with first. This is what the genre of the song should be. Maybe go into an ambient song. Lindsay always likes ambient songs. Rem wants something that's really fast. I don't typically want to write in 150, but I wrote in 150 and ended up being okay. Writing ambient music is much more meditative and difficult. I would say that it doesn't come out of me as easily and fast because it's a different approach generally to composition and much more time consuming, but I made a pretty cool thing. I made a pretty cool ambient thing last Saturday night. And I listened to it again yesterday just to kind of like review for myself, and I was like, hey, this is actually pretty good. Sometimes you never know. Sometimes you have to sleep and listen to a track the next day to see if it's actually good or if you were just, addled. So, yeah, that was good. Dar says, ooh, backstory, the Loudness Wars. Thank you, actually, Liana, for saying that On the Move sounds really fun. I really like that song now. But the Loudness Wars were a thing, Dar. I want to say 2014, 2013, like maybe 2013 through 15, 16. People's music were getting exponentially louder at a fast rate. Like, it was kind of like we were gradually getting louder. It was like if you listen to a Beatles record, it's like pretty quiet. We were gradually getting a little bit louder. Into the 70s, disco was a little bit louder. Then the 80s, like pop synthesizers got a little bit louder. And then suddenly, like in the late 2000s, like 2012, 2013, 2014, it was just like huge increases in volume. People were compressing the heck out of their sounds and their songs, and I think a lot of it had to do with, without getting too deep into this, Dar, a lot of it had to do with the fact that now EDM was a huge genre, and you weren't really having to worry too much about dynamics. Now, I know there's a lot of people that come into the stream, that watch the stream, that also make EDM. This isn't necessarily shots at EDM. As somebody who has also made it, it's just true. Typically, like, main stage level EDM music isn't so focused on dynamics. It's just not. If you listen to a Marshmello track, the dynamics aren't necessarily important in a Marshmello track, especially if you listen to like some like bass music. Dynamics aren't important. And this isn't a thing that's only for EDM, but since that was around the rise and popularity of it, I'm going to focus on EDM. It wasn't important. And for a song like, pardon the example, because it's no offense to Deadmau5 or anything, but if you take a song like Ghosts and Stuff, or if you take Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites, both very, very good songs of that same era, you take that song and you compress the heck out of it, it's still at the end of the day going to be a fun, loud EDM bop, and it'll be great, and it'll have a lot of power and emotion. Now, if you take a Donna Summer song, or you take a Hush Sound song, what a weird, I don't know where I got those two from, but if you take like a Reba McEntire, so what am I doing? If you take a I'm gonna say Reba McEntire. If you take a Reba McEntire song, sorry if I'm alienating anyone, and you compress the heck out of it, you're gonna lose dynamics, and it's gonna show. You're going to hear it in the deterioration of Reba's voice. You're going to hear it in the deterioration of the steel guitar. You're going to hear it in the deterioration of the tambourine. But when you have a house record that's focused on a lot of really hard, powerful, punchy sounds, you can compress the heck out of it. It doesn't really degrade the overall listening experience as much as it would if you were to compress the heck out of a regular pop record or compress the heck out of a country song. So, on SoundCloud, things just kept getting louder and louder and louder and louder and louder and louder to the point where people were focusing on volume when the volume was part of the process. Like when people were getting things mastered, they were saying, crank it to 11, like master it, and I want my sound file to look like a brick. And it was this kind of funny thing that we all on SoundCloud noticed, because if you look at the waveform on anything, like you guys have been in my streams, you see when I record my vocals, you see when I record piano, and you see the waveform kind of has this nice little, it looks like a Christmas tree turned on its side. There's dynamics. But then there is a time on SoundCloud where all of the dynamics are being removed from the songs by us, and you would click play on a song and the song would just look like a solid brick. There was no like waveform. It just looked like a big sausage. And that was the loudness wars. Things just kept getting louder. A few people took it upon themselves to kind of counter that by going quiet. I wasn't necessarily countering it. I just wasn't joining the loudness wars. So my stuff stayed around the same volume. If you listen to some of my older songs that other people have mastered or it was sent out to somebody else, it will be a little bit louder typically. Like even the song Away With Me, that remix that I did for Tamagugugu, that's mastered a little bit louder than I would probably have mastered it myself, but hopefully that explains a little bit of the loudness war. Okay. Anywho, I hope that answered it, Dar. We still never got the 55 BPM, but he gave us 100, which is basically a pepped up 50. Oh yeah, it's like double time 50 BPM. I can still try 55. I had just as much trepidation about 55 as I did about 150. Brian, and 150 turned out to be a song that I thoroughly enjoy, so maybe next production stream I'll try 55. Lindsay says never noticed the master volume being quiet. That's funny. Oh boy. I'm not gonna yell it. I'm not gonna yell it though. Reba McEntire's. Reba McEntire is a quote-unquote survivor. Uh-oh, Brian. Uh-oh. I'm a survivor. Reba McEntire is still alive, right? Hope Reba's still alive. Anyways, Reba McEntire is a survivor. I don't know what the context is for what she has survived, but I'm sure it sure had a decent ring to it. Yeah, it was a beautiful song, Brian. And I think she was surviving, I think she was surviving being, see, I don't want to say anything mean about Reba McEntire. I have a very fond memory of Reba McEntire. I have a very fond memory of going to anyway, I went to some country festival. I've talked about it before in the stream. I went to some country festival in Arizona, and I saw Reba McEntire. And Reba McEntire was very, very nice and a very pleasant human being. And I also watched her show. I'm a survivor. I don't remember what the other lyrics of that song were. What a great song, though. I thoroughly liked that show. I only watched the show because I watched pretty much anything that came on WB/CW. Like, I watched basically every show that came on that network. And Reba came on, I think, right after school, so I would watch it. And I had no idea that woman was a country singer. I was like, that's really cool that she sings the intro of her own show. And then somebody was like, oh, Reba's playing a show in town. Like, Reba's got a concert. And I was like, you kidding me? I'm there with bells on, baby. I meant to put Survivor in quotes in the strictest sense. No shade on her Survivor story. No, I feel you. No, that translated to me, Brian. I know it wasn't disparaging at all. I really, really like Reba. Rebo holds a very, very special place in my like music, my personal music lexicon. I've gotten a little bit sidetracked, but yeah, that's what the loudness wars were, Dar. But point is, yeah, being able to talk to people that don't know a lot about the thing is good, especially when you yourself don't know too much about the thing and you're just trying to pass along maybe some lasting knowledge. I think, I think in general, I think in general, working on music has way too much like analogy potential to any other activity in life that you're going to be spending a lot of time on. And maybe one of the things that I wish people understood about music that they don't, and I feel like I say it at least once a week, is like it's not this it's not this thing that you have to be good at. I think that the illusion of being good at music is kind of like the illusion of being good at dancing. If you're really good at dancing, I'm sure you can get an award for it. If you're really good at skateboarding, there's an award to be had for sure somewhere. And if the only reason you're getting into dancing, if the only reason you're walking out onto a dance floor, if the only reason you're getting a dancing instructor, is the only reason you're buying a skateboard or learning how to cook or learning how to sew is because you want to get an award, then maybe I'm not talking to you because I have no idea who those people are. I have never wanted an award or an accolade so bad that I undertook learning a new skill. But I'm sure those people are out there and power to them. But for everybody else that just wants to be good at the thing, you have to take into consideration that the thing is very old. I was looking at a video of somebody playing something called an ocarina wind steel tongue drum. I'm sure you guys have seen them. They're like a circle. They're a circle and they have these little like tongues or tabs on them. And you hit them with a mallet. It's a very pretty sound. Percussive instrument, hence the mallets. I was looking at some woman play that yesterday on YouTube. Boom, 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 boom. She was doing a little thing. It was a very pretty song. And then the next video started auto-playing, right? And it was of her playing the little thumb piano. What's it called? A kalimba. She was playing a kalimba. And she's somewhere, and she's like somewhere in freaking China, and she's wearing the like traditional Chinese garb, and she's like kneeling somewhere by a brook or a waterfall, and they've got like all these high-def cameras pointed at her, and they've got like the most high like quality microphone recording it, and they're catching all this Foley in the background, and like there's like B-roll of a fox walking by. It's ridiculous. I mean, I know what it is, and it's done for plays, and it's very aesthetic, and it's got like, I don't know, 100 million views. But point is, she's playing this very old song on this very old instrument. And I tried to ignore all of the like glitz and glamour and the view count and the comments and all of the pageantry about the video. And I thought to myself, this instrument is very old. Right? And there was a point when somebody heard this instrument for the first time and they hadn't heard a lot of music, there was a point in time in history where somebody, a musician or a lute player or whatever came into town and people hadn't heard sophisticated, quote unquote, organized music from an actual musical instrument that wasn't the human voice. And that must have been so wild for them. Like, I always think about, like, what if we didn't have keyboards and electric guitars and all that stuff, and really we just had, a few pieces of metal nailed to a piece of wood with a hole in it, and we did have to create music. Sure, somebody is going to play, like, Mary Had a Little Lamb or something on it, because that's what you do when you're sitting down at a new instrument. But somebody is going to push it to the next level and is going to play some really wild, complicated piece of music. And then somebody else is going to learn how to play chords on it. And then somebody else is going to make a more advanced version of that thing with weird tunings and stuff like that. We always push, as music and tools, we're always pushing and innovating and kind of growing with different instruments. And something that I always think about when everybody's like, oh, I'm no good at music, or I don't know how to get into music, or what would you say the best instrument is, or what would you say blank, 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 yada, yada, yada. Because I think about all those people that had to play those really old, like, wild instruments that weren't really regulated very well and probably only could play maybe 4 or 5 notes, or there wasn't a proper scale on it, a lot of those early instruments were percussive. It was just people hitting things. Like, I mean, granted, that's still technically today what drums are, but you think about all those old instruments, they didn't really have like valves and stuff like that, you know, any kind of complex circuitry or chords in them, you know. It was just a thing that somebody was striking and it was making noise. And if people could do that and still make something pretty out of it, you can like sit down at Fruity Loops and make a song. You can sit down at a keyboard and make a song. You don't need to know what the A minor scale is, and you don't need to know all this weird theoretical knowledge that came afterward, because those people back then playing the kalimba, they didn't know music theory either. Like, you don't need to know that stuff that came after. Just like focus on making a sound and trying to make it good for you. I think that there's like an illusion of time. The great illusion of time, where people think, well, it's too late for me. I'm 12. That's way too old to learn how to play piano. My friends have been playing since they were 3. Like, there's that illusion of time. That's why I like seeing people like, well, he's passed now, so maybe not the best example. I was going to say, well, now I've forgotten his name. Who was Professor Snape? What's that? Alan Rickman. Like, I like seeing people like Alan Rickman. I like seeing people like John C. Reilly. I like seeing people that like got into a cool thing or found their niche kind of after people think you need to find your niche by, you know. I like to see things like that happen. It makes me happy because I do think there's room for people like that. Like, if you're starting piano or you're starting guitar or something like that, it's not like you're not doing yourselves any favors by thinking you're supposed to be X amount of good by X amount of time or accomplishing certain things. I think that a lot of the gatekeeping that's done in music, not the music industry, which there's actual gatekeeping happening, and I'm not going to get into that in the stream, but a lot of the gatekeeping and getting into music is actually in people's heads most of the time. Like, even if you really like, if you're like, I want to play saxophone, and saxophones are wildly expensive, you're absolutely right. They are super expensive. But there are inexpensive ways to acquire a saxophone. I have acquired some very expensive pieces of equipment in some very weird ways, sometimes for free. Like that accordion that I used to have. But yeah, there's always a way to get the thing. Of course, keyboard being the cheapest. It's the easiest to get into as far as cost, but yeah, there's always a way to do it. I try to say that as much as possible in streams, because I feel like whenever I open myself up to questions, one of the most common questions is, I want to make music. What's a good place to start? Which is a good question to ask for sure, because it shows that the people are interested in even starting, period. But I think it's not as linear as a lot of people think it is when it comes to getting into it, you know. You can do whatever the heck you want. James Murphy from LCD Sound System. Now, there is a name I have not heard in a very long time, Brian. Wowie. Didn't even release their first album until he was in his mid-30s. Time is relative, but it ain't relevant. Ooh, very eloquent. I like that, Brian. Yeah, when I joined a band named Peach Cake, who the singer of it passed away last year. Very sad. But I did join that band, having no idea who LCD Sound System were, not knowing who Arcade Fire was, and not knowing who Hot Chip was, and not knowing who Talking Heads were. I didn't know who those bands were when I joined this, and the singer of that band, Stefan, loved all 4 of those, and just every practice I walk in, that music is blaring, and he constantly was talking about those bands and why they did this and how iconic blank was, and it was really interesting. It definitely opened my mind a little bit to what music could be and what a musician could be and how musicians view their art. It's interesting how some people, there's artists, you know, artists in the true sense, when people think that artists have to be really, people think that artists have to be I'm trying not to use the word eccentric, but that's really what I'm saying in no words. People think that artists have to be like these super eccentric people that are like, oh my god, I suffered for it. I don't want to explain this song. It's so vague and it means whatever you want it to mean. And there's like these people that sit down in a chair for the interview and they've got their wacky suit on and they've got their funky sunglasses on and they're saying, yeah, I did a bunch of peyote or I did LSD and now I'm making music on a different level, man. Like, we're all part of a collective consciousness, and there's these people that are like super dense, alienating humans. Not to say that that's bad, but you know, that's what an artist is. And then some like random like 17-year-old that's just sitting on his like MacBook and making, I don't know, a Lorem type beat isn't a true artist, but kind of just like a hobbyist, like somebody having a good time. And I think it's sad because I think it's actually like a sliding scale. You know, there is an A and there's B. I think that every artist does have a relationship that they develop with their art over time, and that relationship does skew them and make them a little bit less relatable. I definitely view my music in a really weird way, but only after making like 50 or so songs, you know. And we all here know that I'm well beyond 50. I mean, we've got like 10 minutes left. Anybody have any cool questions? Anybody have any cool questions? Hopefully not about the past couple of weeks about me dying. I feel like that gatekeeping mentality comes from both sides of the coin. Ooh. The misunderstood artist that needs to be understood, and the listener that gravitates towards that emotion. I think I've definitely been there and then vacated the premises shortly after. Because as an earlier artist, I definitely needed to be understood, and I felt like I was doing all of this work, right? I constantly feel like as an artist, like I'm very rarely just making a tune and going, here you go, people. There's a lot of thought and time that goes into making songs. And especially for me, I'm like putting a lot of narrative in them. And I want people to understand that. And I think I was able to forcibly take a step back and look at what that looks like for the rest of the world. What it looks like for me to stand hunched over all of my pieces of work like some deranged like Quasimodo going like, you don't understand, you don't get it, why does nobody get it? And I looked at that from the outside and I went, what a horrible image, what an awful image, what an awful image to portray. And I started letting go, you know, I started letting go of that. I'll put out, you know, Speed Dream, and it's a whole story thing, and for people that consume it, that's cool, and for people that don't, you know, it's sad for me, but it's fine. It's fine. Or I'll put out Daydream, and there's like a narrative to it, or I'll put out Ego, Death, and Quick Breath, and there is this narrative there, and there's a lot of work that's put in. And then most people will kind of go and listen to like 4 or so of the songs and go like, this is pretty chill, and they'll leave. And I get it, you know, I get it. And I think that in my absence, not in my absence, in my hesitation to be understood all the time, Like I don't need to, as a musician, as a person, as anything. Like I don't always need to be understood, and I think that that allows the people that are consuming the art not to be kind of like under this like, this like magnifying glass of like, did you get it? Did you even get it? There's this kind of this feeling when you've watched a thing, or you've eaten a thing, or you've listened to a thing, or you've worn a thing, or you've bought a thing, or you've seen a thing, and people go, "What did you think?" And you go, "I didn't really like it. It's not for me." And the person who likes the thing goes like, "Well, what? Why? Like, what did you do it right? Did you?" That's like kind of like a running joke in California when people don't like In-N-Out Burger. Everybody like freaks out. They're like, "Did you get animal style? You didn't get the secret menu. Did you get it with this? What kind of sauce did you put on it? What time of day was it? How long were you waiting in line? Did you get the double doubled, or did you get it with shake? I mean, you have to have it with Coke. You can't just drink it with Sprite. That's gonna make it weird." I think there is that need for somebody that is very invested in the thing. And I think as somebody that may be the most invested in my art of anybody else, I have let go of that. I've gone, I put this thing out, I share this thing. If people get it, that's cool. But if I'm being misunderstood, I'm generally okay with it. It's actually really rewarding when somebody does get the thing. I don't know if it was Rem, but somebody in the Discord pretty recently, like in the last month, came in with an Ego Death Quick Breath thing where they were like, "Whoa, I get it." And it was very nice. I was very happy. But it's a little better than me like over explaining what exactly the Ego Death Quick Breath thing is. And I think for a long time I saw other musicians do that, and it confused me. When I would see a musician that would just kind of let people sit in the ignorance of their art, going like, "What does this song mean? Coldplay, Coldplay, Coldplay. What's this song mean?" And they'd kind of go like, "I don't know. What do you think it means?" And it was so frustrating for a lot of the people asking. And I think I'm getting it now. I'm gradually understanding because I've become that person. Anyways, you're right though, Brian, that the gatekeeping mentality does come from both sides. And when that's viewed, when that's witnessed, that artists needing to be understood from the listener, I think that they internalize some part of that. Brian goes on to say music is fun. I think people can quickly stop having fun when they're calling their frustrations passion. Oof, but from my experience, the reality was that I stopped having fun. Ugh, Brian. Ugh. I'm not familiar with this, the Claire struggle, Liana, but talk to me about it. Talk to me about it outside of the stream, or like send something in Discord or something like that, because I know I'm curious. But you're absolutely right, Brian. I think I'm cool with that now. I think I'm cool. I think the realizing when you're not having fun is a very sad thing to have to accept. And I even had that in music. I've walked away from a lot of things, right? I mean, obviously, right? Like I've been in like 6 bands, and I'm not currently in 6 bands. So I've definitely had to walk out of a lot of situations, or walk away from collectives, or walk away from meetings and stuff like that, going, I don't think I'm having fun anymore, and I think that I need to leave. I think that I'm done with this. And I think for some reason, and I'm not, wow, we're getting way off topic, but somehow deeper into the artist struggle, I guess. So Brian, thanks Brian, by the way. I think there's this thing that happens in art and out of art where you're having a good time. Everybody's having fun. Wow, aren't we having a good time? Amazing. The party's just begun. And then at some point during the party, you stop having a good time. But you don't leave. For a variety of reasons. Maybe you don't leave because you're like, this is probably temporary. The fun will return. Or maybe you don't leave because you feel guilty that you're not having a good time. Or maybe you don't leave because you're in denial that you're not having a good time. But for whatever reason, you stop having fun at the party and you don't leave. You stay there. And over time, you start to hate the party, even though the party is not the problem. Over time, you start to resent people at the party, even though the people at the party aren't the problem. The problem is that you should have left, or found something in the party that was worth your time. Um, and that is one of the hardest lessons. I still haven't learned it, Brian. I still haven't learned it. I might die not having learned it. I always think I've learned it, but then I look at another aspect of my life and I'm like, I'm still at the party. One of those parties for me, last year at least, was Twitter. The party sucked, and I was like, I think I'm angry at Twitter, and I'm angry at the people on Twitter when I should just go find what's gonna make me have fun, because I'm not having fun here right now. And I stepped away. I've talked about coming back. I think I'm coming back at some point in the next couple of months, but that was a very, very difficult thing to come to terms with. Same thing with being in a band. I remember being in a band and not wanting to leave because I couldn't. It felt like too much of a choice to leave the band, but I wasn't having fun in it. Same thing with Two-Tone Disco. I wasn't having fun, and I wasn't happy there. But leaving felt aggressive and like conflict. It felt like a bad thing. It felt like a big move. It's like when you don't want to see somebody's content and unfollowing them feels too aggressive, so you just mute them or hide them. Sometimes, sometimes you just need to leave the party and not worry about how the people in the party feel. But again, this is a lesson I'm still learning, Brian. And it has happened to me in music at times. I have looked at my position in music and I've gone, I'm not having a good time. And sometimes I stuck around for far longer than I needed to. True, Lindsay, especially when it's something that you used to enjoy. I think for the most part, sometimes, I think in general, sometimes you just need to take a break. Or sometimes, yeah, you've changed. Something that is both not related to this, but then kind of tangentially related to this is also, I often have the disposition that everything is temporary, because everything technically is temporary. That's a different expression for a completely different lesson. But it takes me a pretty long time to witness shifts, true permanent shifts. My music, for example. Since I like to try to keep it on topic, I'll say my music. My music shifted, right? But every single time my music has shifted, I always thought of it as a temporary departure from what I was making. When I made Love Dream, which was very narrative driven, I thought, well, this is just a weird thing I'm doing. I'll get back to brass tacks, baby. We'll get back to Nice Dream. And then right after that, I made Speed Dream, which was super narrative based, and I was like, oh, well, this is just a departure, but I'll get back. Everything was a permanent shift, and right now I couldn't make Bon Bon if I wanted to. Bon Bon being the single from Nice Dream. I think the same thing goes on with a much larger scale, like the country right now. Not trying to be a bummer, but I think in 2020, a lot of us, myself included, thought of it as kind of a break. We're quarantined, or we're just taking a time out, we're in pause, but then we're going to get back to, we're going to get back to basics eventually. But I think instead what we're seeing is a more permanent shift in the country. Not to say that shows will never happen again, but more so to accept that 2014 to 2016, that era, 2017, 2018, that's not happening again. Instead, we're going to be returning to a very different landscape. So, I think that's a problem too. Connecting to Brian's bringing up the point of not having fun anymore. Sometimes when I'm not having fun, I always think that it's a permanent thing. Like maybe I'm just going through something. But sometimes I, as a person, have changed, and I no longer enjoy this one thing. And I'm kidding myself by waiting for that passion or that interest or that vigor to come back for that specific thing. Oh boy. There's nothing really wrong with that. Hard to see it that way when you're in the thick of it. Absolutely, Brian. It's very, very difficult. Too close to the painting and whatnot. Forest for the trees and what have you. It's interesting, says Lindsay, how we often call those moments art block because it centers the product rather than what we actually get out of it as artists. Yeah, for sure. Can't make art. I'm blocked from making the thing. A lot of people just focus on getting out of the block with the product as evidence that you've gotten through it instead of just being in tune with what you want slash enjoy. This is true. I have a constantly evolving relationship with art block, writer's block, creator's block, etc., musician's block. And I've talked about it in the stream because that's another common question everybody says. What do you do to get through writer's block? And there just isn't anything to get through it. It's like getting a head cold. Like you can take a bunch of stuff to like hide the symptoms, but you're still sick. You just kind of have to like wait it out. I think that art block is the same thing. I think you just, we're humans, and so we go through different things. We're always changing. Art block is just a thing. It's like being sleepy. You gotta go to sleep. Doesn't mean something's wrong with you. if somebody was just like, yo, what do you do to get through fatigue? I keep getting so tired. I can't drive or anything. I can't even stay after this movie. And it's just like, go to bed, bro. Go to bed. And then tomorrow you'll have energy to get through that movie. Like, you can't write all the time. And I feel like such a hypocrite telling people that because I feel like I'm constantly writing. But I should say that that's a lie. I'm constantly writing as far as like Instagram is concerned. I'm like my 99% of my content is me creating things, so it just looks like I'm writing 24/7. But no, I'm not always writing stuff. And a lot of the stuff that I write is garbage. Anyways, so Brian says especially the reason we think we all got into it was because of what we got out of music. When it's not catharsis, it's just work. This is true. Yeah. To circle back around and put a button on this, because we talk about having fun. Brian, when I first got into music, of course it was all fun. There was no piano instructor, there was no grades, there was no homework. It was fun. It was like a video game for me. It was just a video game. You play around. It was like skateboarding. No one's paying me. I'm not sponsored. I'm just trying to have fun. So I was having fun with music. And recently, being in the past couple of years, I've been trying to orchestrate orchestrate works here. I've been trying to orchestrate situations in which I will have fun again. I've been messing with the subtractive synthesis layout on my Yamaha Reface CS lately. Getting in tune with like that constructive flow. For those of you guys that haven't messed around with a lot of synthesizers, they are like people. You do have to learn how the synthesizer works. Very few synthesizers work similarly. Even if you have one FM synthesis and one FM synthesizer, and then one subtractive synthesizer, then one additive synthesizer, and then one modular synthesizer, they're still all very different. Even if they belong in the same family, the flow is very different. For example, on my microKORG, you pick your waveform before you get to your LFOs, and then on my SH201, you pick your LFOs before you get to your waveform. On my Roland Gaia, you're picking your layers and your oscillators before you get to your waveform. It's all very different. And that's fun for me. And so I've been trying to sit down for at least like an hour a day and go like, today I'm just going to mess around with my keyboards and make sounds. I'm not going to make a song. I'm not going to play a chord progression. I'm just going to make noises. And that way later on when I'm actually making a song, I will have this knowledge that came from fun. A lot of our knowledge, guys, comes from fun. A lot of the way you know how your body works and how your body moves came from playing around. We weren't graded. We weren't being judged on learning how to walk, or for a lot of us learning how to dance. We just learned these things from play. And I'm realizing a lot of the things I know about music, a lot of the things I know about composition, a lot of the things I know about layering, mixing, mastering, recording, arranging, composing. A lot of those things I know because I was having fun and just kind of discovered them, and not because I read them in a book or had to take a test on them. Anyways, we're after 11. I'm gonna go over some news now, guys. We're in the final week. This is the last week of season 2. We're just gonna cruise through it, and then Friday, hopefully, we can watch a movie or something like that. Season 3 is gonna be fun. I feel good. I feel good about it. But then there is going to be a break again, a brief break while I do all the stuff for season 3, do some changes, come up with some, because we talked about having segments in season 3, and that's going to come back, and so that is not going to come back like it was over here, but that's going to be implemented. So there is going to be some changes made for season 3, and there's going to be a break while I implement those changes. I will still be very active on the Discord during that break, so I will still be reachable, and you guys will still have a way to reach me. That was redundant. But that's it as far as the news on season 2. It's been a lovely season 2, but I'll save all the closing comments for this Friday, which will be the last stream of season 2. I do have some music out. Signals, House of Omni, Tall Tales, Nice Dream, Love Dream, Speed Dream, Daydream, Lust Dream, Quick Breath, and Ego Death can all be listened to on Bandcamp, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, Google Play, Amazon MP3, Tidal, Brew, Deezer, Pandora, Napster, and YouTube. If you haven't really gone through my YouTube, I do have like a playlist of songs that are just exclusive to YouTube because they're videos. It's not like just a wallpaper of a JPEG with a song that's only on YouTube. Like I actually make videos for them, which is why they're exclusive to YouTube, and I guess Instagram if you want some type of truncated, limited version of it. But that is the news there. Again, there is the Discord, and I will be in it. The song is called Hush Hour. I use it to end the streams from seasons 1 and 2. And season 3, it will be discontinued as the closing theme, and will retake its place in a medley song. I'll just play it in the regular morning medley, and not at the end of the stream. So this will be a good farewell to Hush Hour. I think that's gonna do it, guys. Thank you everybody for being so respectful to me and polite to each other, and for being patient with me during the break. It was a long one. I mean, the past month has been wild. I feel like there was like 2 breaks that happened pretty close together. I was like, I came back for a week and then I got sick. So I apologize for the irregularity. Season 2 should have already been complete, so we're a little behind schedule. But I do thank you all for your patience with that. And I will see you here tomorrow, hopefully, for morning medley number 297. 7? Wow, yikes. 297. Please enjoy the rest of your Monday. Abo, everybody. Oh, my bed's warm. This is nice.